How are the banks going to come out of this, Gerald? That was Gerard, excuse me.
I would say that's okay. I would suggest it's really going to be driven by what goes on here in the U.S. economy. And if, granted, it's very unknown what the outcomes will be with the current conflict in Ukraine and Russia. But if we anticipate that the U.S. economy will have only a minimal impact from that conflict, and we're certainly seeing it already in the price of oil and other commodities. But if the U.S. economy continues to grow, possibly maybe not 3 to 4%, as many of us were expecting prior to the conflict, maybe a little slower than that, but inflation is still a challenge, the Fed is going to have to move on rates, and that's the short rates. And that is the critical aspect of why bank investors can make money this year, even at this point, by owning bank stocks.
So why have they been suffering so much? Rates until the past couple of days, the 10-year was up near 2%, a little above it at some times, and that you would think would be a helpful factor for banks. But here you see on our screen, since the middle of February, Morgan Stanley down 15%, JP down 10, B of A down 9, Wells Fargo down 10.
Good question. And I would say there's a couple of factors. First, of course, the de-risking of what's happened just recently since, of course, the conflict broke out. But to your point, from the middle of February, the names you've identified happen to be all the banks that have very prominent investment banking operations. And we know from the data that we've seen year to date through the end of February that the investment banking revenues for all of those players are going to be down meaningfully in the first quarter versus first quarter of last year. So I think when you look at the regionals and you look at the leadership has changed, you know, Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs, their stocks are fantastic from the start of the pandemic through the end of 2021. But that leadership has been passed over to the regional banks that don't have big presence in investment banking and have the biggest benefits from rising short-term interest rates, like an M&T Bank.
And Gerard, you've got a hold, to that point, on Goldman, on Morgan, also on Wells. We'll leave it there. We appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.